宣说：若善男子、善女人乐欲修学此甚深般若波罗蜜多法门者，当观五蕴自性皆空。何名五蕴自性空也？所谓即色是空，即空是色，色无异于空，空无异于色，受想行识亦复如是。弟子，一切法如是空相，无所生，无所灭，无垢染，无清净，无增长，无损减。舍利子，是故空中无色，无受想行识，无眼耳鼻舌身意，无色声香味触法，无眼界，无眼世界，乃至无意界，无意世界，无物宁，无物宁尽，乃至无老死，亦无老死尽。无苦集灭道，无智，无所得，亦无无得。舍利子，由是无得故，菩萨摩诃萨依般若波罗蜜多相应行故，心无所着，亦无挂碍，以无着无碍故，无有恐怖，远离一切颠倒妄想，究竟圆寂。所有三世诸佛依此般若波罗蜜多故，得阿耨多罗三藐三菩提。是故应知般若波罗蜜多是广大名，是无上名，是无等等名，而能习除一切苦恼，是即真实无虚妄法。诸修学者当如是学。我今宣说般若波罗蜜多大名曰耶呀达嗡嘎đề嘎đề巴拉嘎đề巴拉桑嘎đề布利梭哈。舍利子，诸菩萨摩诃萨若能诵是般若波罗蜜多名句，是即修学甚深般若波罗蜜多。尔时世尊从三摩地安详而起，在观自在菩萨摩诃萨言：善哉，善哉，善男子，如所说，如是如是。般若波罗蜜多当如是学，是即真实最上究竟，一切如来亦皆随喜。佛说此经已，观自在菩萨摩诃萨并诸比丘，乃至世间天人阿修罗、乾达婆等一切大众，闻佛所说，皆大欢喜，信受奉行。正道启门品，功德积成具恩根，合理依止到根本，善见能以其勉励，至诚敬依其加持。此生得来只一次，已知难得重要义，日夜不断求进取，此心长生其加持。生命浮动如泡沫，幻灭迅速念无常，此后犹如生于影，善恶业果紧随根，诸恶积聚细微处，坚定信念皆因气，修勤一切善资粮，常去随去其加持，片苦之门受不厌，世间不扰不可依，见到罪过发心愿，力求解脱其加持，清净意乐所引起，正念明确之严谨，佛教根本别解脱，修习精要其加持，如已堕入轮回海，为母众生亦如是，拯救有情为己任，修炼菩提其加持，升起为是三律仪，不熟岂能成菩提？善见能与菩萨戒，勤奋习修其加持，静心放逸邪见净，照理明办清净义，即使圣见双运道，数生相续其加持，修习共道成容器，诸圣最上金刚圣，衔接凡夫趋正路，顺利易入其加持。彼时二种成就根，所讲清净三昧也。获得正确真实义，舍命手持其加持，密续精要二次第，尽力了悟诸要义，力修是作瑜伽行，如教修持其加持，只是正道善知识，如宜修行众法有，内外所具诸障碍，平息安宁其加持。
连处置我前几卷，定见 Nam Boai Kyo Om Datso Gito Sancho Pado Dani Katsuchi Dagi Chinyo Gite Drola Penche Sangye Droga Chandan Soke Chonamla Chancho Pado Dani Katsuchi Dagi Chinyo Gite Sonam Drola Penche Sangye Droga Chandan Soke Chonamla Chancho Pado Dani Katsuchi Dagi Chinyo Gite Sonam Drola Penche Sangye Droga In keeping in what we've discussed yesterday, Shantideva, in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, said that having paid these bodies his salary, is due, if I do not make sure that I put it to work, then it would be a great folly. It would be a great waste if I do not make sure that it does what it needs to do. So, thinking of what we've covered yesterday, we've discussed this precious human body that we have now, which is a good working basis, a good physical support. So if we do not extract the essence of this good working basis that we have now, in thinking of what will occur to us in our next lifetime, it would be so easy to attain again a similar working basis without having to practice the Dharma. You can say that, well, all right, so there's no problem if I don't do it now. But the reality is, the matter of the fact is that, the fact of the matter is that it is not that easy to obtain such a good working basis. In reality, actually, it is very difficult.
如同呢，我们昨天所说的内容哦，就是在吉天菩萨的这个入菩萨行论呢，也有提到，就是说我们获得了像现在这样子稀有难得的这种暇满人生哦，如果你没有好好的去善用它的话呢，那将是极大的浪费哈。那就是我们应该呢要善用这个暇满人生，把它用在该做的地方哈。然后如我们昨天所讨论过的，就是我们现在拥有这个暇满人生。暇满人生呢，它是一个非常好的，就是顺缘具足的一个修行的这个基础。如果你没有好好的去善用它，去截取它的精华的话，那么你下一世会怎样呢？我们会以为说，下世呢还是一样可以再得到一个这么好的这个暇满人生的这个修行的基础。事实上并不是这样哈。如果说你这一世没有好好的修行，善用你的暇满人生的话，你下一世呢没有那么容易可以再一次获得这个暇满人生。事实上，要获得暇满人生呢是非常困难的。
아니지 그게 주시가 되는 거. 주에 되다 아니 전주 남기는 게 아니 그게 미국에서 이게 가서 남들은 좀 그래서
In continuing with that today, in order to extract the essence of this good physical support that we have at the present, we need Dharma. Particularly the type of Dharma that we rely upon is the status of the path of enlightenment, the Lamrim. The status of the path of enlightenment contains all the key points from the excellent teachings that the Buddha gives. So this is the Dharma that we rely upon.
我们呢，今天呢，就是要继续呢讲，就是如何呢去截取我们现在拥有的这个暇满人生的精华，那就是要依赖这个佛法。什么样子的佛法呢？就是整个这个道次第啊，因为道次第呢，就是讲我们这整个成佛的这个菩提道。其实整个菩提道的要点呢，都已经包含在这个道次第里面的，所以道次第呢，就是我们要去依止的这个法。
So then, yesterday we looked at the first line in the three principal aspects of the path in paying homage to the venerable spiritual masters. Now, if you look at that in terms of how the equivalent points in the stages of the path of enlightenment, you have first of all the teachings on how to properly rely upon a spiritual teacher, and then having relied upon a spiritual teacher, the stages of training one's mind.
那昨天呢，我们就是已经开始了，就是讲这个三主要道的这个第一个寄颂哈，然后呢也去提到了就是菩提道的这个摄颂啊里面的这个第11颂，就是讲到这个如理依止师长的这个重要性这样哈。那事实上呢，就是这个如理依止师长呢，是我们要开始呢去修心修这个菩提道的第一步。
So let's look at the next paragraph in our text. It says, I will explain as well as I'm able the essence of all the teachings of the conqueror. So this line pertains to the determination to leave samsara, what is called renunciation. Then it says the path praised by the conquerors and their spiritual children. That pertains to bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. And the entrance for the fortunate ones who desire liberation, that pertains to wisdom realizing emptiness.
那接下来呢，我们要讲的呢，就是这个三主要道的这个下一段哈，然后呢，就是要他这一段呢先念的哈，就是说这个是诸这个贤善佛子所赞叹的这个希求解脱这个行者之经道果经因随力而宣说这一段哈，然后这边呢最主要就是先是讲这个出离心哈，然后呢。 再讲呢，就是说这个已经征服者的这个意思，指的是佛子，就是指的是这个菩萨哈。然后再来呢，讲到这个贤善哈，那这个就是讲说已经证悟空性的。
조 선생님도 아니 지금 뭐보다 아니 시제 지발이야 그게 저 통하는 용 가서 용에 나서와 용 일단 아니 지금 코알레 아니 가고봐 봐 시어 이베나 아니 지금 이게 니도 된다고 때 아니 그 인중 상황 내가 아니 코알레는 한다 지내리나 어떤 이거 인중 상황 그랬어.
We said that when the first no. No, sir. No, sir. We said that the essence of all the teachings of the conqueror, that line pertains to renunciation, the determination to live cyclic existence. And you might wonder, how come? What is the reason that this part of the verse refers to renunciation? Looking at the teachings that the Buddha gave, the Buddha taught 84,000 discourses. And the purpose of all those different discourses that are classified either into Mahayana teachings or Hinayana teachings, the purpose of all those different discourses is to lead precious sentient beings through the stages of liberation. Since sentient beings have been under the influence of terrible suffering since time without beginning and up until now, being tormented by suffering, being controlled by these two sets of obscurations, by afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations, in order to liberate all those sentient beings to the state of liberation, one needs to have renunciation, without which there's no way that sentient beings will be able to attain the state of liberation. So again, going back to the question, what is the reason that we link up the essence of all the teachings of the conqueror with renunciation? The reason is that without renunciation, there's no way for sentient beings to be liberated from samsara. There's no way for them to break out of the suffering. And therefore, renunciation is the essence of all the teachings of the conqueror.
接下来呢，就是我们刚刚有讲，就是说一切佛陀的这个他的所言的这个心要义哈，然后其实呢，这个最主要呢就是在讲这个出离心哈。为什么是出离心呢？因为呢，佛陀所传的84000法门，或者是呢有的分类是把这个84000个法门分为大乘、小乘啊，有不同的这个分类的方法。那不论它怎么分哈，那佛陀所传的这些法，最主要的这个目的呢，就是要让众生呢能够得解脱这样。因为呢，一切这个有情众生呢，从无始以来呢，一直到现在呢，都一直在受苦当中，一直受到痛苦的这个干扰，以及呢，他也受到2种障碍，就是这个烦恼障跟所知障啊。那所以呢，为了希望众生呢能够从一切苦、一切障碍当中呢解脱出来啊，所以呢要让他得解脱，第一个要务就是要先具备这个出离心。如果没有出离心的话，众生呢就无法得解脱哈。所以呢，我们才会讲，就是说一切佛陀的这个智言的这个心要义呢，一切这个法的这个精华精髓呢，就是出离心。因为要有出离心呢，众生才能够得解脱，所以出离心呢，也是一切佛陀教法的精髓。
전주부 사람들이 되게 걔네들 타버튼이 난 용어다, 그봐? 아니 있으면 되게 타버튼도 거시고다. 타버튼이 전주님의 가사는 게 있어. 타버튼이 이 가사는 게 되게 지금 이모바가 진짜 저거를 타버쳐봐야 아니 장이 전주도 있으면 누구지? 아니 가시고 이게 먼저 보이나 되는 집이 중립을 타다 말이니까 나 민주가 뭐도 됐어. 다른데 남주 실시 주제 좀 뭐라? 나 같은 주제.
So then, in the next section of Then the next part of the verse, the path praised by the conquerors and the spiritual children, is linked up with bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. So again, if you wonder why is that the case, well, if there is a person that seeks the state of liberation, in which they are free from the two sets of obscurations, from cognitive obscurations, from afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations, which means that if that person seeks the state of liberation or omniscience, the state of enlightenment, they have to have bodhicitta, they have to have the mind of enlightenment, without which the attainment of the state of liberation or enlightenment would not be possible. Thank you. So, this section of the verse, the path praised by the conquerors and the spiritual children, that pertains to bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment.
就是接下来就是讲到这个就是说这个希求解脱行者之经道，然后是诸贤善佛子所赞道，这个意思呢就是在讲这个菩提心这样子因为呢就是说我们呢如果要希求这个解脱的话呢有两种就是说因为我们一直有这个烦恼障跟所知障所以如果说你要希求解脱的话呢，尤其是那个最就近的解脱，就是证得这个一切种智就是你要得到这个一切种智变质的这种成就，一定要透过这个菩提心。如果呢你没有菩提心的话呢，你就没有办法成佛没有办法证的这个一切种智。所以呢，在这个偈颂里面呢，才会讲到，就是说这个希求解脱行者之经道，是诸贤善佛子所赞叹。这边呢，最主要是要讲这个菩提心。
Then the last part of the verse touches upon the entrance for the fortunate ones who desire liberation, which will link up with wisdom that realizes emptiness, in that a fortunate person who seeks the state of liberation will not be able to attain that without wisdom that realizes emptiness. And therefore, wisdom that realizes emptiness is the entry gate for those fortunate ones who desire liberation.
然后这个最后的这个就是说这个要最主要是讲最后面那就是这一句呢，中文最主要是讲说希求解脱行者之经道这个部分。就是说最主要是讲你如果要解脱的话呢，你就一定要证悟空性，因为要入解脱之门的这个入门呢，就是这个证悟空性要透过证悟空性呢，才能够入这个解脱道。
So then Gaden Lama Tsongkhapa says in the first verse, I will explain as much as I'm able those three principal aspects of the path. When Lama Tsongkhapa phrases it in this way, he's taking a humble position in saying that as much as I can, I will explain the three principal aspects.
然后呢，再来就是这个宗喀巴大师呢讲到说，我今因随己力而宣说这样子他会这样子讲呢，其实呢就是一种非常谦卑的方式说他会就是随尽他的力呢而来宣说。
다 간다 스베데랑 맞아. 저 뉴스 좀 봐. 요 티브랑 얘네들 다 아니 뉴스. 다른 이게 지금 중국에 면대지 먹고 있어. 봐. 이 아니지 이게 남주시는 지금 비제디 아니지 개발되는 좋아 주상도 이제 상황이 아니 준비 주수 뭐 나와 아니지 발발에 가지고 남주시는 지금 비제디 얘네들이 세배 대화를이야. 봐. 세배 대화를 자신이 세배 대화를 해서 대화 통화 새로 통화하는 건데 이게 지금 양반들 이 이게 제대로 농제가 대전 공배 공부하면 봐. 아니 지금 이게 나도 대화 때 나도 아니 지금 이게 파라 아니 이게 동행이 아니 누구 동행 진행이 같이 아니 내가 뭐 어쩔 수 없어 봐. 아니 다 이게 지금 동행이 비는 쉐를 하는 안들어 자신을 쉐. 이 소리 하는 지금 이게 가지고 제대로 비제되기 때문에 아주 실제로 비제되기 대화에 대한 좋아지 주상을 이제 상태라 아니 지금 이분은 여기 가지고 좀 받았잖아. 봐. 뭐다 굉장히 아니 이게 세배 대화를 자신을 봐. 되게 주상을 이분 강도 유명이 자기 봐. 뭐다 굉장히 아니 아주 실제로 비제되기 굉장히 가사지 아니 대화
The following verse is a verse of exhortation, in exhorting the target audience of this text, which means a Buddhist person that follows this text, to listen carefully to the text. It says, "Listen with clear minds, you fortunate ones who direct your minds to the path pleasing the Buddha and strive to make good use of leisure and opportunity without being attached to the joys of cyclic existence." At the end of the verse, one of the characteristics of a person that is a particular target audience of this text is explained. It says that the person is not being attached to the joys of cyclic existence. The person, a person would have freedoms and opportunities. A particular Buddhist follower from whom this text was composed is a person that is not attached to the pleasures of samsara, in that, first of all, they would know that there is no satisfaction in them. No matter how much you might partake of those pleasures, they will not be satisfactory, in that they will not be able to provide you with the bliss of liberation. Not only that, through also being involved in the pursuit of the pleasures of samsara, we create causes that keep us going in cyclic existence. So the first characteristic of a person that is a target audience of this text is one that is not attached to the joys of cyclic existence. The person also strives to make good use of leisure and opportunities, which means that they have 8 freedoms or 8 leisures and the 10 opportunities. On that basis, they seek the Dharma without being attached to the joys of cyclic existence. They direct the mind to the path pleasing to the Buddha, in that the path that clearly lays out the things that we need to cast aside and the things that we need to take up. So that person, the text says, in exhorting us to listen carefully to these teachings.
然后接下来呢，第二个寄颂呢要讲的就是讲说于诸三有安乐不贪着，未成暇慢毅力而精进，唯愿依于佛陀欢喜道，具法缘者尽意善谛听然后这边呢这样子讲，尤其是这个在寄颂的这个最后呢，就是讲说如果呢就是这个追随者这些弟子，如果你呢不想受苦的话呢，那你就不要去贪着这个就在中文的话，第一句先讲的这个就是说于诸三有安乐不贪着，你就不要去贪着这个轮回的这种享乐，因为呢轮回的这种享乐其实不管呢你获得多少轮回的享乐，再多你都不会满足的这样子就是这永远都不会满足 足的就是这种轮回的享乐，而且你追求这个轮回的享乐的话，就会造成呢你没有办法这个解脱轮回啊。如果说你继续呢再去追求这个轮回的享乐的话，就会让你自己呢继续困在轮回当中哈。那所以呢，如果说你想要解脱轮回的话呢，你就不要对这个轮回三有的这个安乐呢产生这个贪着这样，而且不止不贪着而已，你要善用呢你现在所获得的这种暇满人生，也就是具足的这个八闲暇十圆满的这个暇满人生呢，用来就是追求这个佛法这样子哈，然后呢而不要去贪着这个轮回的享乐。所以呢，在这边这个寄送呢，就是说，首先清楚的来告诉我们，如果说你决定要希求，就是要追求呢这个法的话呢，那你应该呢要做什么样的这个抉择这样哈。然后，所以呢，最后就讲说这个具法缘者，这个敬意善谛听。
要我也没让他一个，你尝试一下，中断不语噻，对吧？也得一个光一个对吧？也是中对，人家说当对，对吧？那你干嘛在这里就像咱们现在好像700块，好像700块，对吧？700块呢，你原先是。
When verse 2 says, "Listen with clear minds, you fortunate ones, who direct your minds to the path pleasing to the Buddha," the path pleasing to the Buddha is the path that combines the determination to live cyclic existence, renunciation, the mind of enlightenment, and the correct view. Those who desire that path, those who take joy in that path, those who develop great interest and make effort in pursuing that, those who pursue that in a Mahayana way, pursue the path that that is pleasing to the Buddha.
再来呢就是刚这个寄送里面最后讲说，具法缘者就是精义善谛听啊，谛听什么呢？就是唯愿于依佛陀欢喜道这样哈。然后这个呢，还有我们前面呢在讲的呢，就是要讲说这个出离心跟这个空正见这样子哈。然后如果说你有这个好要心呢，要这样的去希求这个解脱之道的话呢，就是应该要如此。然后呢，要怎样呢？就是要依于这个佛陀的这个欢喜道，所谓佛陀欢喜道指的就是大圣，就是你要是希求这个大圣的这个教法修行的话，那就是会令佛欢喜。
那个你说的是对，这个肯定是有他们，是的，刚才已经结果，或者是他们你说在，那第一个你说上面这些东西，我，俺这个你说俺哪怕他们去了，给我买了那是，俺这个好像是我国外的什么的，俺这就代表嘛的是，真的是我国外的什么的，这个我吃完了呀。민주당까지 개봉하지 그랬어. 그다음 이 민주당이 굉장히 그게 지금 시내 동에 싸움을 벌였어요. 시버코에 아니 지금 그게 동에 이 아니 그게 지금 아주 도와주고 그게 동에 싸움을 벌네. 아니 시버코와 몇시 이기를 빠지 아니 대봉도 이거지. 아니 대봉하나 아니 얘네들을 타러 무슨 고마 금주 이거지. 그랬어. 이제
Let's look at the next paragraph. It says, "For you, embodied being, bound by the craving for existence, without the pure determination to be free, which is renunciation, from the ocean of existence, there is no way for you to pacify the attractions to its pleasurable effects. Thus, from the outset, seek to generate renunciation or determination to be free." First of all, it speaks of having to develop pure renunciation. Now we have to develop pure renunciation, pure determination to emerge from cyclic existence, because without which we will not follow the path that proceeds to the state of liberation. So we need to develop pure renunciation. And the way that we do that is through thinking of the suffering of the 6 realms of existence. And through thinking of the suffering of the 6 realms of existence, we develop that strong disenchantment from cyclic existence, to the point where we would want to abandon those states of existence. So that if we develop the wish to abandon, to rid ourselves of the suffering of the 6 realms of existence, the 6 realms of existence in general, cyclic existence, that will bring about the wish to practice, the path that proceeds to the state of liberation, the wish to practice the Dhamma. That will come through developing pure renunciation.
在下一个寄颂呢，所讲的呢，就是倘若无有清净出离心，何能熄灭有海乐希求？由贪有乐众生遭戏腐，是故先当寻求出离心。那这一段呢，首先呢，他指出来的就是说，我们必须要有这个清净的这个出离心，也就是你真的要有下定决心呢，想要解脱，想要出离整个这个轮回苦啊。如果你没有这个清净的出离心，没有这样子的这个决心的话，那你就没有办法在这个解脱道上去增上啊。所以呢，就是你要在解脱之道去增上的话，第一步你要先发起这个清净的这个出离心，就是说你要解脱呢，就是整个这个6道的这个轮回苦，你要产生呢很强烈的这种出离心，就是你呢就是要舍离这所有的一切这个6道的这个轮回苦，然后舍离一切这个轮回苦这样子啊。然后当你下定决心，你不想要再受这个所有的6道轮回苦的时候，你才会产生那种希求的心，想要去修行，然后想要去修行才能够证这个解脱道这样子啊。所以呢，你要修行能够证的这个解脱呢，那一开始你一定要来自你先发起这个清净的出离心。
포화되냐 아니 지금 차신 그만 스버프에 아니 지금 이게 가지고래 대화죠 봐 스버프에 대화 되게 대화지 무슨매워 스버프에 대화 되게 우리 위 뭐를 하네 아니 스버프에 대화 되라 아니 차를 차신 아니 지금 이게 도시로스 무슨 그냥 그냥 수수 같다 그런 아니 지금 이게 스버프에 대화 아니 지금 이게 있어 당신 머리 같대 아니 그게 진짜 아니 강 친해 있는 거지 시에 파네 아니 얘네 타면 우주들이야 아니 우주 남다 아니 우리 계도야 내가 지슈스
When it says, for you embodied beings, bound by the craving for existence, being bound by the craving for existence, for samsara, particularly to the bliss of samsara, to the pleasures of samsara, we have that sense of attachment or clinging to the pleasures of samsara. What we need to recognize is that it is a cause for the suffering of samsara. That attachment, that clinging to the pleasures of samsara is a cause for the suffering of samsara. The root of which is ignorance that grasps at the self, ignorance of the conception of self, which is also called bondage. Right? So this is what binds us to cyclic existence. And this is what we need to sever in order to break free from cyclic existence, and therefore it says, to begin with, what you need to do is to develop pure renunciation.
那再来呢，就是在这 寄送第三个寄送里面就是说何能熄灭有海乐希求就是一直在讲，就是说我们呢一直在贪着，一直在希求这个轮回当中的这种享乐这样子那首先呢，我们必须呢要认出来呢，你想要就是贪着，然后希求这个轮回的享乐，事实上就是造成你会在轮回里面受苦的这个因那你会困在轮回里面的这个根本呢，其实是无明，也就是贪着呢，就是这个自我是实有的这种无明呢，而造成这个轮回的根，而这个造成你轮回的苦因，就是因为你这个希求轮回的这个享乐这样子所以呢因为呢这样子的关系呢，才会把我们像绑住困在这个轮回当中呢，没有办法解脱。所以你如果想要就是破除呢，将你绑在轮回里面的这个束缚的话，那你要破除这个束缚的这个第一步，一开始就是你要先升起这个清净的出离心。
Primarily, what is taught in this verse is the generation of the determination to live cyclic existence, which means that basically what you need to have is that utter disenchantment with samsara, to be completely disenchanted with samsara. So how do you do that? Well, you think of suffering. You think of them in terms of, you think of the suffering of samsara. You think of them in different ways. You think of the 3 types of suffering, the 6 types of suffering, the 8 types of suffering, the general or the universal suffering of cyclic existence, and the particular suffering of cyclic existence, the miseries of the 3 invisible states of existence. So you think about them in relation to yourself, in that you seek to understand how you yourself are tormented by those different types of suffering. And through that, you develop that utter disenchantment with samsara.
那再来呢，就是这个第3个寄送他要所讲的最主要的要点就是说，你要下定决心呢，就是要解脱整个这个轮回，要让自己呢，就是远离这个轮回苦这样子那就是说你要解脱的话呢，首先你就是要去想到这个轮回的苦才会让你产生这个出离心。那我们去想到这个轮回苦的时候呢，我们有不同的描述这个苦，有时候我们把它分为3苦，有时候叫6苦，有时候是8苦，或者是一般的这个轮回苦，或者是讲到特定的6道的每一道的苦，或者是讲到这个3、2道苦这样子然后我们要去思维呢，就是我们自己呢是如何的呢受到轮回里面这个各种不同的苦呢所折磨这样子然后呢，那透过呢你不想要再受这些苦的折磨呢，然后呢产生这个出离轮回的这种出离心。
Then there is also the particular way that you develop renunciation that is explained in this text, the three principal aspects of the path. It says that you do that through overcoming the clinging that you have to appearances of this life, and then overcoming the clinging that you have to appearances of future lives. Or in general, reversing the clinging to this life and reversing the clinging to future lives. So you do that first of all through contemplating the misery of the three miserable states of existence. Through that you overcome the clinging to this life. So you think of the three miserable states of existence and the state of fear that are involved with those states. You develop fear of them and you seek to be liberated from them. You also reverse or overcome the clinging to future lives through contemplating the general suffering of samsara. So in this way, you develop fear of the general suffering of samsara, and again, you seek to emerge from that, to be liberated from that.
那再来呢，就是我们呢升起，就是说你要修这个出离心呢的结果，那之后呢，你就是要升起像这个三主要道。那首先呢，我们要从这个克服调伏呢你对现世安乐的这种贪着开始。就是说要修这个出离心呢，你要开始修这个三主要道的话呢，你要从这个首先呢就是去调伏呢，让自己呢不再对现世贪着，以及也不对这个未来世产生贪着就是出离现世跟出离未来世这样。那要怎样去产生这样子的这个出离心呢？就是要透过呢你去观呢整个这个六道的轮回苦，以及你这一世现世所受的这些苦。如果呢你真的去深入的观这些苦以后，你会对这些苦呢会产生一种这个恐惧，然后呢你就不想再受这些苦，你就希望能够解脱所有的这些苦这样子所以呢就是呢你也是连这个所有的未来世的这个轮回苦呢，你也都希望能够解脱。那这样的话呢，就是要透过你连未来世的整个苦都希望得解脱的话，你要透过去观这个轮回里面的这个一般的苦，然后你也对轮回的所有的苦都产生恐惧之后呢，然后你就会产生这个希求解脱的心。
Let's look at how it is stated in a verse. So we read through the third paragraph, which in Tibetan is actually divided into two verses. So no. No. So the third paragraph is divided actually into two verses. So we read through the first 3.5 lines. That's one verse. The next verse begins with, by contemplating the leisure and endowments so difficult to find, and the fleeting nature of your life. So first of all, let's look at the contemplation of leisures and endowments, so freedoms and opportunities, right? There are different translations of the same thing. So leisures. We have 8 leisures and 10 endowments. leisure in the sense that we have the leisure, we have the freedom to practice the Dharma. We have that because we have those 8 features. 4 of them refer to being free from states of being non-human being, which means that being either a hell being or a hunger ghost or an animal or a long life god. So we are free from them. Those are the 4 states pertaining to non-human beings, and we are free from those states. Then we have 4 others that pertain to being born at a time in which one of them, in the 4 remaining states, the states in which exist for humans, and yet we're still free from them, which means that So then we have the 4 states that we are free from as human beings. So we are free from being So we are free from being born in a place that is not a central land, which means that we are free from being born in a border area. Right, so being free from being born in a place that is not central land, being free from being born as a barbarian, being free from wrong views, and being free from being dull or stupid. No. Okay.
然后呢，再来就是事实上，如果是藏文的第3个寄颂它分为2个部分然后我们刚刚呢就是讲了3个半的这个寄颂然后就讲到这个所谓的这个暇满里面的这个闲暇，闲暇指的就是呢我们目前呢所具有这种闲暇，让我们呢有这个自由呢可以修行那闲暇的前面4个闲暇指的就是说。我们没有呢堕入那种非人无法修行的状态，指的就是说我们呢没有堕入地狱、恶鬼、畜生或者是长寿天这种非人，然后没有办法修行的那种境地。那另外4个这个闲暇指的就是说，你身为人，可是呢也没有办法修行就是修行的这个顺缘不具足的状况呢，指的就是说，例如我们是身在中土，所谓中土就是有佛法的地方没有升到这个边界去。所谓的边界呢，就是说边地就是说身为像野蛮人然后没有文化，没有办法遇到佛法然后呢我们呢也是。再来就是说，我们身的这个状态，就是说我们的6根呢都是健全的，我们没有就是身在那种就是6根不具足那没有办法学习修行的那种状态。然后呢，再来就是呢，我们也没有升到那种就是所谓持这个极端的这种邪见然后这是第3个，还有第4个就是说，我们也没有生在那种如来呢，就是佛陀没有来住世的那种时代。
기다는 미국 아니 줄을 하는 건가? 제가 보고다. 냐와라야 사람이 이탈리아 아니 조금 아니 줄을 아니 내시 뭐다 굉장히 그게 동의 그게 신진 최초의 개발 제가 됐어. 아니 다음에 지금 그게 최면세 미 대장과 미 대중이야 최면세 미 때문에 최초의 개발 아니 다음에 지금 바로 개발이 돼 아니 내부적으로 저도 있는데 지금 샤워에 있는 거게 최초야 그거 영화가 아니 뭐가 제일 개발이 돼 저는 해보면 일단 아니 샤워 이제 말하는 게 인발 아니지 그게 지금 많은 상황다 일단 상황다 제일 됐어.
First of all, His Eminence is explaining how we have leisures, in that we are free from 4 states that are non-human states. We are free from being a hell being, which means that we are free from the torment of either intense heat or cold. We are free from being a hungry ghost, which means that we are free from the state in which we are tormented by hunger or thirst. We are free from being an animal, which means that we are free from the state in which we are dull and stupid. We are also free of the state of a long-life God. We are also free from certain states in which, even if we are born as human beings, we still don't have the fortune to practice the Dharma. So such states would be like, for example, if you are born at a place where there is no Dharma. If you are born as a barbarian, if you're mute, or if you have incomplete faculties, or if you have wrong views. So all those 4 states might occur even if you are born as a human being, and if they occur if you are born as a human being, you don't have the fortune to practice the Dharma. So we are also free from them.
在首先呢，就是仁波切讲解这个八闲暇的这种闲暇里面呢，前面4种呢就是属于就是说非人的状态的那种无暇。那指的就是说我们呢没有堕到这个地狱里面去受各种这个疾苦的这个折磨然后也没有堕入这个恶鬼道呢去受这个饥渴之苦的这个折磨。然后呢，我们也没有身为这个动物就是会极端的这个疲惫跟无明这样然后也没有升到这个长寿天呢，因为这个都是让你没有办法修行的非人状态。那另外4种这个闲暇指的就是说呢，有些人呢，他虽然身为人就另外4种无暇就是说他虽然身为人，可是他却没有这个福报可以修行呢。指的就是说，例如像如果你生在那种佛陀呢没有降生就没有佛法的那种时代，或者是呢你生在这个边地边境呢这个野蛮人呢也没有办法修行。那或者说呢你是这个聋的，你的这个根气不具足呢，你也没有办法修行然后或者是持有这种极端的这个邪见呢，你也没有办法修行那这个讲的都是说身为人可是却没有福报可以修行的这个状态。那目前呢我们有这8种闲暇呢我们都没有受到这8种无暇的这个状态的干扰。
我在土地里面呢，前面肯定土中人家搞这个有关。아니 좋았죠. 좋았을 때 일단 굉장히 상대였다가 대대야 남정마다 신정마다 일단 뭐 아니 남정마다 아니 지금에 가서 나는 거 아니 미리 개발 뭐 미리 봐 아니 지금 최대한 유수 개발 아니 최 다와서 마세베 양수 공부 대한 상대 아니 지금 공부 상황 그래서 그러지 공부 상황 좀 마세베 하면서 나도 좋아 아니 아니지 그게 상징이 주는 이야기 대박이 되고 어떤 문제인지 그게 수수용이 그게로 그게 상태
So we have the 8 sets of leisures. In that we have the no. No. So we have the eight sets of the set of 8 leisures, in that we are free from those conditions that are not conducive for the practice of Dharma. Now next are the 10 endowments, which are divided into 2 sets. The 5 endowments that pertain to oneself, and 5 that pertain to others. Which means that you have a set of 5 endowments that are in you, that are favorable conditions for you to practice the Dharma. And there are also those that are not particularly based upon you, but that they're in general, that also make it possible for you to practice the Dharma. In that sense, there are favorable conditions for your practice of the Dharma. So first of all, when we look at the 5 endowments that pertain to oneself, we have, first of all, being born as a human being. Right? So that's the first one, being born as a human. We were born in a central land. We have complete sense faculties. We haven't performed one of the 5 heinous actions, or 5 actions without intervening periods. And we also have faith in the Buddha Dharma. So we have those, first of all, the 5 sets of conditions, favorable conditions that pertain to oneself. No. No. So, no. So His Eminence also mentioned that we haven't committed one of the 5 heinous actions, or 5 actions without an intervening period, which refer to killing one's own mother or one's own father, killing an arhat, drawing blood from a Buddha, and creating a rift or a split in the Sangha. So we haven't committed one of those 5 heinous actions. So again, we have that feature, and also we have faith in the Buddha Dharma.
再来呢，就是我们前面所讲的呢，就是说我们目前呢具足了这个8种闲暇哈，也就是呢没有这种8无暇的障碍哈，所以让我们呢能够得以修行。再来呢是讲到这个10圆满，10圆满呢它可以就是有5条呢是属于这个自圆满，5条呢是属于他圆满。那就不论这5个自圆满或5个他圆满，讲的就是说你都因为具足这些顺缘，所以使得让你可以修行。首先呢，我们来看这个自圆满哈，自圆满的这个前的这5条指的呢，第一个就是说我们呢出生为人，所以我们有这个人生。第二个呢，你就是生在有佛法的中土。那第3个呢，就是说你这个6根，你的一切根器呢都是圆满具足的。然后再来第4个呢，就是说你未造这个无间罪哈。然后刚刚一些就是说明说什么叫做无间罪呢？指的就是说你呢就是没有造这个极恶的这种像杀父，然后第2个是杀母，第3个是杀阿罗汉，第4个是出佛身血，第5个是破和合僧。这个呢都是非常严重的这个无间罪哈。那我们呢没有去造作这样子的恶业，这是自圆满里面的第4条。然后自圆满里面的第5条就是说呢，我们对佛法有信心。
We spoke about the 5 opportunities, or the 5 endowments. Long. The 5 endowments that pertain to oneself. Now the second set of 5 endowments that pertain to others, in that they're based on others, or they pertain to others. So first of all, that the Buddha has come. The Buddha taught the Dharma. The teachings remain. the followers of those teachings, and there is the extending of love or care to others.
那再来呢5种他圆满呢，第一个就是讲到说这个佛陀呢就是有降世，而且也传法。那佛法呢也一直就是流传呢，传承存到现在，然后现在呢仍有这个佛陀的追随者呢在修行。
那근데 어떤 굉장히 기술을 사용하는 굉장히 이게 지금 아주 오래 기술을 사용하는데 내가 굉장히 아니고 말하는 야 굉장히 이게 말이야 딱 안에 그 마주냐 근데 내가 됐어 봐 근데 너는 지금 나는 옆에서 먹는 거야 야주는 이제 신부가 나왔어 봐 포함한 이게 사이가 친구 그래 지금 나야 아니 지금 이게 세 이제 신지 요리나 아니 지금 루벨 농원시 봐 론 야렌 상지야 아니 지금 이게 야주까지 이게 뭐지 되게 이게 세 이제 신부가 돼 아니 루벨 농원 이게 지금 안에 줄세 아 미세가 왔어 아니 이게 이게 지금 해서 그렇지 그거밖에 안 되지 내가 하는 게 따로 미쳐지 말았어 때리 되는 게 있어 아 미세가 더 봐.
So then, recognizing our freedoms and opportunities or leisures and endowments, what we then do is we think of having to take the essence of this body that we have, this precious body, with freedoms and opportunities, leisures and endowments. Because we want to do that because it is very difficult to find such a human body with freedoms and opportunities. There's actually an analogy that was provided in teaching, such as, for example, in the teachings on the steps of the path to enlightenment. An analogy was given of a blind turtle that resides at the bottom of the ocean and surfaces up once every 100 years. Now, suppose that is a yoke set adrift upon the ocean, drifting, tossed adrift on the surface of the ocean. For that blind turtle to come up from the bottom of the ocean and stick its neck in the hole of the yoke, so that sounds pretty impossible, right? So it illustrates the impossibility of also attaining such a human body, such as the one that we have now with leisures and endowments. In that it is very difficult to find such a human body, as impossible as it is for that blind turtle to stick its neck through the hole in the yoke that is set adrift on the ocean.
那再来就是呢，当我们呢就是认出了，就是我们具足了这样子可以顺缘具足可以修行的这种暇满人生以后呢，你就要了解到就是说这个暇满人生呢，它是多么的珍贵，而且是多么的难以获得这样子的人生啊。那在道次第里面呢，有用一种类比法的这个例子呢，它就是比喻说，例如呢，在这个大海啊，这个洋流上呢，有就是里面呢住着一只这个是瞎了眼睛的盲龟啊，然后这只瞎了眼睛的盲龟呢，它在海底啊，每100年它才会升到海面一次啊。然后这海面上呢，就是有一个在漂浮的一个小小的一个圆形环状的这个东西哈。然后就是说，在这个瞎了眼睛这只盲龟，它每100年它才能够浮到海面上一次，而且在茫茫的大海当中呢，它浮上来的时候，它要正好把它的脖子哈穿过在这个大海里面到处漂移的这个圆形的这个环状的东西里面去哈。那我这个听起来几乎是不可能的事，因为这个乌龟根本就看不见，而且它100年才上来一次而已，这样哈。然后，所以呢，这个就是在比喻，就是说我们的暇满人生呢，是多么的难以获得啊！就是要在这个100年才浮到海面上一次的这个盲龟的，它浮上来的时候，要正好它的脖子呢，要穿过在这个大海那么大里面漂移的这个环状物上面去哈。就这样的几率呢，就是我们获得暇满人生的几率。
20光年那个应该是研究人家什么，这主要的情况之下，那你这个不能成 吧？俺那最近那把东西数，情况没看不下，那就轻松跑起来，跑的别个轻松，就说我记得在中华的嘛说，百万把它从那情况去当你。
It is so difficult to find such a good physical support. It is so difficult, and you can look at it from different perspectives. You can, for example, look at the causes that produce such a good human body and understand how difficult it is to assemble the causes for that. So it is said that the causes for attaining such a good human body with leisures and endowments is, first of all, guarding pure ethical discipline as the basis. Then you need to supplement that with the practice of the 6 perfections, such as generosity. And at the end, you need to link it up with standards aspirational prayers. So looking at those 3 sets of causes, pure ethics, having to have pure ethical discipline at the basis, supplementing that with the practice of the 6 perfections, and at the end, linking it up with standards aspirational prayers, you can understand how difficult it is to find such a good human body.
那再来呢，就是我们要了解到，就是这个暇满人生呢，就是说可以让我们修行上这么的顺缘具足，这种暇满人生为什么会这么难以获得呢？我们除了刚的类比法以外，我们可以用它的因，你要造什么样子的因，种怎么样的因，才能够获得这么好的这个人生呢？那就是说，而且你要一次把所有的要获得这样人生的这个因呢，全部要具足在一起成熟。才会得到这样的暇满人生。这个如何得到暇满人生的因呢？首先第一个因就是呢，你要持这个清净戒啊，然后第二个呢就是你要行这个像这个布施啊、持戒等等的这个6度6波罗蜜这样哈。然后第三个呢就是你在行这些持戒跟6度之后呢，你还有这个圆满清净的这个发愿回向这样子啊。这3种这个因呢，你都要具足，你才有办法得到这个暇满人生。所以我们从呢要种什么样子的因才可以得到暇满人生，从这个造因呢方面，你就可以知道说这个暇满人生是多么的难以获得。
好的，真是。当然的，像这个说的这个其他的业务高，业高是什么？这个但这个有些事情，包括这么些，这还没去没有讲，那真是没这个问题，这样没有吧？是吧？这种我有嘛？这个你生意你们不能下多，然后你这个起码不能全部，马上大学遇到嘛？那这个这就是这个其他说的到我这个办这个习惯，这是其他的事。
Not only it is difficult to find leisures and endowments, you can also think that if that was a permanent and stable situation, then even if you would not practice the Dharma, you will get by in a way that is okay. But this is not the case, is it? In that it is said that we cannot be sure which will come first, tomorrow or next life. Since also as the text says, the fleeting nature of this life, we can recognize the fleeting nature of this life. We can contemplate that there's no sense of permanence or stability with the freedoms and opportunities that we have now.
那再来呢，就是说我们呢这个暇满人生啊，就是真的是非常的难以就是获得啊，就是我们现在所获得的这样子的这个有闲暇又有这个圆满的这个人生这样啊。如果你没在这样的情况之下，你如果没有去修的话，你会以为说得到这个是很容易的，其实是很难的啊。然后呢，而且呢，你得了也不是会一直拥有啊，就是说。如果呢，像法上有一句话就是讲说，我们不确定是明天还是下一世会先到这样啊。我们其实去观察我们这一世的本质呢，就可以了解，这个我们这一世呢其实是非常无常的这样子哈。所以呢，我 我们就可以知道说，你要能够获得这样的机会以及继续拥有呢，这个是非常稀有难得的。
c'est la longue mais non. Non. In thinking of the fleeting nature of our life, we can think of that there are so many conditions for death and so few conditions that keep us alive. Not only that, also some of the conditions that keep us alive can actually be conditions that cause our death. So think about it. Think about how there are so many conditions that can cause our death. Like, for example, food. The food that we eat can, in a certain situation, cause our death. You can be, you can step on a thorn, and that simple thorn can also cause you death. Think of food, as a condition that we use in order to sustain life, in order to nourish our life. If we have a food in a way that is not appropriate, if we have too much, for example, the food that we eat in order to sustain ourselves can be something that can cause our own very death. So in thinking of the fleeting nature of our life, we think of that there is no sense of permanence or eternity. There is no sense of stability to this life, because there are so many conditions that can cause our death, so few conditions to keep us alive, and even the conditions that are there to keep us alive can act as conditions for death.
那再来呢，我们去思维到这个生命的这个无常的这种本质哈，就是说，当我们可以去观察我们的人生呢，就是说，活在这个世界上哈，要让我们就是会让我们造成我们致死的这种逆缘非常的多，但是让我们可以继续生存的这种顺缘呢是很少的哈。那例如说呢，有那么多的这个原因可以造成我们的这个死亡哈，例如说。这个一根刺也可以造成死亡，然后呢，或者是我们本来赖以为生的这个食物，本来是要滋养我们的生命的这个食物哦。如果说你的饮食不恰当的时候，例如说你这个过度的这个饮食吃太多或怎样，都可以造成你的这个死亡这样子哈。所以呢，这个生命的本质本来就是无常的啊，生命的本质不是说有恒常的，不是有这种永恒的这个生命的，就是说我们活在这个世界上呢，会造成我们死亡的这种逆缘很多，让我们继续生存的这个顺缘很少啊，然后就是很容易就可以造成我们的死亡。
这里拿起来这个呢。
宣布时间样，宣布社就我等那个宣布时间点，西安上班的，我要工作才确实。但是这个你年把起步，对吧？你年把起步，相关的话，这个所存者，这个所见的，他钱上班的基本上，经过认识，那基本上是把我搞的平凡，当年小人就是，然后这个表现的话，通道上来讲，企业可能上班的问题才多是，我没说确实。
Gaden Rinpoche said in one of his writings, with respect to death and impermanence, is that the moment that we are born, we have no certain duration for this life, and that there is no fixed lifespan that we were born with. Not only that, as we are born, from, you would say, the mere fact of being born, the death process has kicked in. Not only that, while we're alive, we're already started to travel the road to death. It's like taking one step after the next on the path that leads to our execution ground. So think about it in terms of, now if you think of yourself as being like this prisoner that have committed a grave crime, being sentenced to death, and each step that they take gets them closer and closer to the execution ground. So we are just like that, in that so long as we are alive, we're still traversing the road that proceeds to death. And as such, what are we so happy about? This is not the time to be happy, actually, if you think about it. It is a state of despair.
那以及呢，这个雇主呢，婆婆卡仁波切呢，在他的著作里面呢，就是讲到这个无常里面就有提到说，事实上呢，当我们从出生以来的那一刹那开始呢，我们的这个生命这个寿命呢就没有办法逆转了哈，我们就开始呢在消耗我们的这个寿命的这个长度哈，也就是说，你光从出生开始呢，你这个死亡的这个程序这个序幕就已经是开始了哈，然后呢，虽然说我们现在好像是活着，可是活着的时候呢，其实你就已经是一步一步呢前往这个死亡的道路呢在迈进的这样子啊，就好像呢那种就是犯的这个重犯的那种死刑犯人哈，他已经就是一步一步呢要走向要处决他的这个断头台上去了一样这样子哈，然后所以呢，就是我们从出生以来开始呢，我们就像这个死刑犯一样哈，就是一步一步的呢在走向这个处决的断头台了这样子哈，所以呢，就是我们出生以来到现在，我们就是一步一步的呢在这个死亡的这个道路前进。
但反正前期可能我其中是这样的，对吧？俺这个他们一直年其中那个武力出去，他那就给了嘛的，俺那样我也把这几年同样的，我学过的书牌的，给了嘛的，但是呢，年年赚的那点钱，才是怎么说呢？这个那个那点钱对吧？给律师都有，律师都有，俺是要他给了嘛的。他们还是我现在这个这个啊，说明到的，出国的，你呢上的喜欢，俺那女生我俺这个出战也不要跟人这个有意思。
So then in thinking of our death, it's not that whether you're young or whether you're old, you have any certainty with respect to when that time will come. It's not that if you're a parent, you will certain to die before your child. It is also possible that a child will die before their parents. It is not certain that an old person will die before the young. So there is no certainty whatsoever with respect to when we will die. So that if we make a certain plan, we think that I still need to do such and such as I have time before my death, we have actually no certainty with respect to when will be the actual time of death. It might take only a few minutes for us to die. So therefore, what we need to do is to contemplate death and impermanence, so that through contemplating death and impermanence and developing familiarity with death and impermanence, we develop an intense determination to emerge from samsara. So we think of death and impermanence, and also the three types of sufferings. Not only the three types of sufferings, or the suffering of miserable states of existence, we can also think of the suffering that we undergo as the suffering of birth, suffering of aging, suffering of sickness, suffering of death. And we can see those types of suffering in us, we can see that perceptually, we can see that directly. Not only in us, but we can see also in everyone around us undergoing those types of suffering. So really, if you think about all these types of suffering, you will see that there is no sense for us to endure that anymore. Really, that intense renunciation will arise.
想到呢，我们自己的这个死亡的时候哈，然后我们要了解到呢，在这个轮回里面最主要的问题呢，就是这个死期不定哈。这个会死的人，这个死亡呢，不是跟你的年纪轻或者是年老的这个问题哈，因为在这个死期呢是不定的，所以在父母跟子女来做比较的话，也不一定父母一定会比这个孩子先走哈，也有很多呢是孩子比父母先死的哈，所以呢。这个死期不定的哈，就是说我们都不知道什么时候要死哈，这个死期是不定的，那我们也不确定什么时候要死哈，所以呢，就是呢，我们应该要去做的就是说，如果我们只有剩几分钟可以活的话，我们应该呢也是要去念死无常哈，我们就是要一直去念死无常，让你的心呢去串习，很熟悉这个念死无常这样子哈，然后。这样的话呢，你才会产生这种要出离轮回的这种出离心哈。那不只是要一直不断的念死无常哈，而已呢，你的也要常常呢去观这个三苦哈，以及这个三恶道苦这样子哈。例如说，我们如果讲到在我们自己身上进行的，你可以看到的这种生，然后老病死的这些苦，你可以这些苦是。你自己可以直接见到，而且你也知道它逐渐就是一直在我们的身上在进行的这些苦哈。然后呢，你就是呢去观所有的这些苦以及念死无常之后呢，然后你确定的呢就可以升起这个出离心。
부러워다 그게 지겨워 다 들이야 공부를 해서 와 걔가 가만히 두스 맞아 지금 동네 나는 상황을 찍어야 돼 상황을 동네 두스 근데 싫어하니까 이 능주죠 이제 이게 그 오연이 주시 이 그래서 대중께 한 스틱을 사실 알 거 방법이 좀 샷. 와. 이 상황은 동네에 나대요.
Gyalpa Khensan Gyatso, the seventh Dalai Lama, said in one of his writings that when we look at people around us, we can recognize different types of differences between them. You might have those of high status, those that are rich. You might have those that are completely impoverished, those that enjoy great authority or great power. You might have a minister. There are all sorts of peoples. You have great kings. Even a king that is called in Indian language Chakravartin, which is sometimes called a king of a universal monarch. And you likewise can have someone that is utterly impoverished. So we are different to each other as human beings, and we can see the differences between human beings in terms of the type of clothes that they wear, the quality of the clothes that they wear, the housing situation, the prosperity, the possessions that they have, the amount of money, gold, or what have you. There are differences between different people, and yet there is no difference between all of them, in that all of them are tormented by suffering. So seeing that, Gyalpa Khensan Gyatso says, seeing that in reality, as this is the reality, that we might be different to each other and yet all of us are the same in being tormented by suffering, how disheartening it is.
在这个一个师长叫这个Gaden 他的著作里面呢，他有提到，就是说，在我们人当中我们就是说从这种财产身份地位等等来看呢，是有很多各种不同的区别。有的人呢，他的社会身份地位很高，有的人贫穷，有的权力很大，有的人呢，他可能是一个这个大臣，或者是大国王，或者是甚至呢，就是以印度话来讲，那个意思就是他好像是整个这个宇宙普世的那种国王这样子就是说在人跟人之间这种社会地位或财富或权力方面，你可以分出这么多的区别你可以从呢他所穿的衣服的质量，或者是他住的房子、他的财产、他的身份地位，你可以分出这么多的不同的区别但是呢，有一点呢，是在这种各种不同的地位的人当中呢，毫无区别，大家都一样的地方呢，就是这个苦那在事实上就是说，虽然人的这种社经地位有这么多的不同，但是呢，共通的一点就是大家呢都是受到这个痛苦呢所折磨的，大家呢都是在受苦当中的。
So we'll stop here for today. We're going to do some recitations, including the mandala offering, and then His Eminence is going to take a few questions. Rinpoche revo pasangi shin dojoyon Mamo paye loto Polo Rinpoche Tomo Rinpoche Tomo Rinpoche Ompo Rinpoche Tampo Rinpoche
大众仁波切，马可仁波切，德智贤罗巴耶玛哲巴玛鲁玛嘎梅多玛杜克玛那塞玛智扎玛尼玛达瓦仁波切，杜卓连南巴加维加塞，我所拉达米本着工作做法马扎瓦梅巴。我瓦吉扎吉，我杰热玛尼玛玛当巴那玛，我比亚尼罗吉格巴扎吉，
Okay. We're also going to do the Lamrim prayer. le dro chang chu lam ye ri be han de nam ye ye lai ben le ya le te wa ren du yang yu nam sai tru be ten ye tru te ye ye se che mi ta mi mi se rai kun tu ya le ma pa nam da lam tan che wa ma yu an te te pai cho lai che 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 an ro la te ma te ye tu de nam ye ka tu cho che ta shi ya su to wen ya yu So maybe we'll begin with
any questions? Can we start?
My question is why can't the long life God practice the Dharma? And my second question is what are the cause and condition for someone to be born as a long life God?
디간라디 플라츠 림보 케기 규 카리나스
Fazer você é tipo de优秀些，特别有点梦见，对吧？远远的梦见那个优秀些，确切那个不是我的不过是不是往前，我把全部记给大去，对吧？这这些，这个路就要的，反正马上就是那做的这些，俺觉得还是比车照也不值钱，俺那是，俺那阿里店呢，俺那个什么反正就是说我的一个版图，就是咱我先多，我先我。很多事情是咱们比较前面的，我本来对于这个硬性，或者确认研究给就研究研究这个问题，对吧？现在是这样。
It is said that when you're born in that state of a God, a long life God, you enjoy objects of desire, objects of the senses, to that degree that you become as if you're completely intoxicated by that. It's like it brings you such a great pleasure that the avenue for becoming interested in the Dhamma, for practicing the Dhamma, is completely blocked because of your deep sense of enjoyment of those objects of the senses that you have access to in that state of being a long life God. And there is a story about that. There is an account of someone that had been studying before. He also had some acquaintances which were his Dhamma friends. Then later on he took a birth as a long life God. He met his friends. He recognized his friends from the time before. And yet there was a sense of completely ignoring each other because everyone were just, as if blissing out on those enjoyment of the senses. No. It's like being on drugs, right? Intoxicated. Now, as for your second question, His Eminence says that he cannot recall that particularly. Maybe we'll leave it here for a while and maybe we'll come back to that in another day. Have you got other questions? So, are you interested in being born as a long life God? No. Well, if you do not want to be born as a long life God, then you don't have to look into the causes, because those are not causes that we want to cultivate.
刚刚呢，这个有2个问题啊。第一个问题就是说，我们刚刚有提到就是说如果出生为这个长寿天人呢，就没有办法修行，为什么啊？然后第2个就是说，出生为这个转世为这个长寿天人的因跟缘是什么？这样，那第一个问题，荣杰的回答呢，就是说呢，出生为这个长寿天人，为什么没有办法修行呢？是因为呢，他们的这个感官都会在这个享乐的这个贪欲上面因为他们在长寿天那个就是太享乐了所以呢太享受了，他根本没有兴趣要修行那例如荣杰举的一个故事，就是说以前呢就是有一些。
Question I'd like to ask is that out of the 8 freedoms, you mentioned that wrong views is one of the freedom, meaning that they are free from wrong views. My question is, this particular wrong views that we're referring to, is it with respect to being non-Buddhist views, or is it other wrong views we're talking about? Because, I mean, even we are Buddhists, we have many wrong views. I mean, we are not even enlightened, so of course we have wrong views, right? So the fact that we are human beings and we are free from wrong views, this particular wrong views, this category, what do they refer to? Is my first question. My second question is that in tonight's teachings, right, I do feel that the essence or the point that was brought forward to us in these teachings is to generate fear, that we have no time to lose, that we must quickly do something to make full use of our life, so that we can attain Buddhahood. So that, which means that the main thing is about generating fear. So my question is how to balance fear with peace in our daily life. Because if we always have to, when we reflect on these things, we do generate fear. So I feel that I feel that on one hand, this little fear that we generated is good for us to take action. It's not paralyzed fear where we become paralyzed and not taking action. But this fear that from the teachings that I understand is to generate, so that we will take action to do something meaningful. But at the same time, I think in our daily life to have this state, mental state of fear all the time, I'm not too comfortable, really. Because I think maybe I think on the other hand, for my case, I'm more inclined to generating peace in my mind. So could Rinpoche enlighten me on how to balance the two? Thank you.
상상직 하고 싶어 하고 싶고 근데 내가 아주 영화로 내 근데 영화도 뭐지 세미나 난 내가 근데 사이에서 상당히 기도와 내 근데 이지유다 나는 뭐지 이게 고마는 내 고급을 시작이네 어떻게 되고 내 근데 누가 있으면 알아서 생각 지금 좋아 이 아직 좋아하고 인소도 지금 상대보다 제가 시행상으로 상이 아주 이게 진리가 주셔서 있으면 여러 때문에 그저 정리신 여러 아주 뭐가 차게 와서 뭐가 늘 근데 요만데 뭐다 무슨 따로 같이 잡을 당시 그래서 나도 과학 상사로 어떻게 될지 그 있어 봐. 이게 요만했어.
야, 맞아. 난 바이나 연수서 보고. Nibadi la dunesa de chiami tako saya de soso semba de shenan de dawo chi. No. Sì.
shenan 오만 무슨 될 타다리 어렵다. 될 타다 타만이 어렵다. 될 타다 타만이나 될 내주셔 어렵다. 해도 그렇습니다. 아는 것은 단답은 그냥 스페이스 모르겠어. 그래서 사람이 없어. 사람 내가 사는 무슨 노가로 와. 그다음에 신앙도 적응 안 했어.
So first of all, with respect to your first question, being free from having wrong views, the type of wrong views that we refer to here are wrong views with respect to karma, such as, for example, that actions do not produce the respective results, so that, or, for example, that past and future lifetimes do not exist. So we are free from such wrong views in that not only you might have those wrong views, if you have such wrong views, you will also be resolute in those wrong views. You have that strong adhering to the non-existence of karma, or strongly adhering to that there are no past and future lifetimes. So we are free from having such wrong views because, to begin with, we're here today. Not only that, when we look at how we go about things, like, for example, even as far as killing a small insect, it brings that sense of discomfort in our minds and thinking that how it's going to pan out for us in terms of karma. Or if we have an opportunity to steal something, if we can do it and get away with it, we still think that how it's going to work out for me in terms of karma, right? So we do abstain from that in thinking of karma. So not only that, you can also say that not only we are free from that sense of being resolute in holding on to such wrong views, we also take refuge in the three objects of refuge. We have that aspiration or wish that may Buddha bless us. Just being here today, for example, is demonstrating that we are free from such wrong views. Otherwise, if we had those wrong views that deal with or that adhere to the non-existence of karma, to the non-existence of past and future lifetimes, we would probably not be here today, right? So we can say that all of us are free from such wrong views. So that's what refers to with regards to your first question. Now, looking at your second question, the fear of suffering, or fear of suffering of cyclic existence and so forth. Actually, we need to have that type of fear because we also need to do something about it. So that we first of all need to have that fear from those different types of suffering, but we also need to know that there is something that we can do about it. Not only we need to know that there is a path that proceeds to liberation from it, that leads to the state of freedom, and we want to be pushed towards that path. So in order to be pushed towards that path that proceeds to liberation, we also need to have that sense of fear. So don't worry about it.
那再来呢，这个还有两个问题啊。第一个问题就是说，当我们讲到这个八闲暇里面哈，有一项这个无暇的状态指的就是说持这种邪见，所以他的问题是问说，这种邪见指的是特定哪一个邪见这样子哈。然后第二个问题就是说，我们今天的整个开示就是说，我们必须呢要对整个这个轮回苦产生这个畏惧的心哈。那他是问说，如何在日常生活当中呢，将这种这个畏惧以及内心的平静取得平衡这样哈。那仁波切的答复就是说，第一个问题就是讲说其实我们所讲的这种邪见哈，最主要指的就是说呢对这个因果哈业果的相信的这种见解哈。如果说你持了邪见的话，你就会否定因果，否定业果。那第二个就是否定这个未来世的这个存在这样子哈。如果说你有这种这个邪见的话哈，就是说 不止可能会有，而且你这种信念会越来越加强，就会越不相信说有业的存在，然后也不相信有这个未来世的存在。但是你今天会来在这里呢，就是因为你没有这种邪见，你才会在这边嘛啊。然后，例如说我们呢，一定是相信业果，就算你只是杀了一条小虫，你心里也会觉得不舒坦。
Happy about it, don't let it disturb your mind too much. Take your time, have some good food, with some sustenance. Take it easy.
Have Sichuan food.
Yeah, have Sichuan food.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your great teaching. I have a question regarding the conditions for the cause for human rebirth. You say that there are three. The first one is ethical discipline. The second is the practice of the 6 parameters. And then the third is aspirational prayers and dedication. But isn't ethical discipline within the 6 parameters? Or is this ethical discipline different from what inside the 6 parameters, the aspect of ethics?
네, 그중에 영화를 했어요.
Long.
네, 센스 하는 거 같아. 아니 뭐 수준 시선을 보아라.
Long.
이 때문에 지속 사진 좋아지세요. 지속 사진 주가 좋아져야 돼요.
Long.
지금 사진이요. 수준 사진이요. 사진 신발 나 좋아지네. 주가 상관상 쓰고.
Well, first of all, it is said that you need to have the basis of guarding pure ethical discipline. That's the basis. Then you need to supplement it with the practice of the 6 perfections. Now, the way that it is stated implies that it's not that you need to have the complete set of 6 completely present, in that within the 6 perfections we have the perfections of generosity, ethics, patience, Josephat, and so forth. So supplementing it with the practice of the 6 perfections can be taken with supplementing it with any of the 6 perfections. It does not necessitate having the 6 of them complete. No. 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 Well, you need to have, at the very basis, the guarding of pure ethical discipline. Then you have the practice of the 6 perfections which supplement that basis. So you can just a second to so you can also have a basis of ethical discipline that is set apart from the ethical discipline as explained in the 6 perfections. No. No. Oh yeah.
好，所以刚前面的那个问题，最后仁波切结论就是说呢，大家呢就是要放轻松，然后呢心里要感到就是高兴快乐这样子哈，不要让你的心受到太多的干扰。例如说，你可以去 享用吃的是美食物这样哈，然后再来呢接下来呢就是这个问题是问说我们刚刚在讲到获得暇满人生的因里面呢有讲到第一条呢是就是说持清净戒，那第二个呢又讲到就是说要修这个六度，然后第三个在讲就是说你的这个清净的发愿跟回向。那这个六度里面呢就是第二度就是持戒嘛，所以他就问说这个讲的第一项持戒跟六度里面的这个持戒，这两种持戒有什么不一样？那我们接着开玩笑说这在跟人间辩经。那首先我们现在讲就是说，我们讲到获得暇满人生的这个因的时候，讲第一项讲到要持清净戒，意思就是说要以这个持清净戒为基础啊。
록다덴데 요시기르베 테친가 요마레 야메나가소 택멘 테베 케바마 체네가소 록다 요마레스 랑 랑 Hinayanis also Hinayanis do not have wrong views. After all, they also have the fortune to practice the Dhamma, which is indicative of also not having such wrong views as indicated here. And likewise, Hinayanis attain the state of an Arhat. So, since they attain the state of an Arhat, how would that be possible had they had wrong views? No. Right? So we can talk about it later, and then we can discuss it and maybe make that point clear.
抱歉哈，你的问题我没有听得很清楚啊。然后你也是在问邪见的这个问题啊，可是好像问到跟小圣有什么关系是吗？哦，小圣说大圣不是佛法，所以这是不是一种邪见是吗？所以大家有听到他讲哈，就是说小圣说大圣是邪见，然后大圣也说小见是邪见，然后呢就是所有的佛教的邪见一样吗？所以所有的佛教的见解都是正确的见解吗？是啊。然后这个仁波切就是回答就是说这个什么。不好意思，我没有听得很懂，可以请你说吗？对，对我就是听不是很清楚，所以我不敢翻这样子。
Should I repeat it? All right. So the question was, is it that all Buddhist views are necessarily correct? Well, His Eminence says that here when we speak about being free from wrong views, after all, this question relates to the 8 sets of freedom, and one of them is being free from wrong views. So we can say that all of us as Buddhists, Hinayanis or Mahayanis, are free from wrong views. We can also say that Hinayanis are free from wrong views because there are Hinayanis that attain the state of an Arhat. So if a Hinayanis would have that type of wrong view that is referred to here, but that's in the sense set of 8 freedoms, they would not be able, the implication was that they would not be able to attain the state of an Arhat. So altogether, Hinayanis also have the fortune to practice the Dhamma, which is indicative of having freedom from wrong views. So also His Eminence says that if there's some more clarifications needed about this type of wrong views, maybe you can see me after class and we can discuss them.
所以刚这个英文翻译就再复述一次，就是说是不是所有的，就是说我们刚讲的是属于在讲这个8闲暇里面的这个一种无暇，就是邪见嘛。那事实上呢，只要是在佛教里面，不论大小圣呢，你都是没有这个邪见的，因为你就算是修这个小圣，你还是可以成就阿罗汉果哈。那 就是你既然可以成就阿罗汉果，就表示你没有邪见，如果有邪见是不可能成就阿罗汉果位的哈。那以及呢，就是说你还可以修小乘的法的话呢，你也是一样是有福报可以修佛法的，所以呢就表示呢这个是没有邪见的，小乘它也没邪见。那我们接着是说，关于这个问题的话，就可以私底下去跟我们一些讨论。
Say during the last Lama teaching with His Holiness, or at least the translator said, that he estimates 10,000 people have perfect human rebirth in the world today.
10,000 people.
Only 10,000 people have the perfect human rebirth in the world today. So I was just wondering what your views around that. I had never heard that before. It was the first time I heard it in 40 years.
I'm hearing it first time.
Yes, I was wondering if the translator even translated it correctly, and I was told he did. I checked with the translator just to make sure.
Let's sue the translator. I think we cannot give an accurate number. 10,000.
Right.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that he actually gave a number.
Maybe he could have said tens of thousands. Maybe you missed the S. Maybe you could have said tens of hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I would have thought there would be more than 10,000 in the whole world. But that was
Light went off.
Any other question? Okay, I received a question here. So Rinpoche, over the years, I have received various initiations from various teachers. I'm required to do mantra recitation as daily commitment. When I go for intensive meditation retreat or chanting Amitofo retreat, for example 1 million Amitofo over 10 days, according to some retreat rules, the retreatants are supposed to put away all other Dhamma practices aside during the retreat, except be mindful of meditation object or Amitofo. In this case, in order not to break the retreat rules, can I do my daily commitment for the mantra recitation in advance before I go on the retreat? Rinpoche, can you please advise? Thank you.
No. In general, when we have a commitment, a mantra commitment, we need to do it every day without a break, without taking even a day break. So that if we wonder if it's possible to accumulate enough mantras before a certain retreat, so that we can then avoid accumulating those mantras on a daily basis while we do the retreat, this is not possible. Because our mantra commitments are such that they need to be done daily without a break. So His Eminence suggests that if you have obtained many empowerments before, and the question indicates that the person asking that said that no, they have attained many empowerments before, His Eminence recommends that you then seek permission from the person that you took the empowerment from, saying that you're going on that retreat, you have certain stipulations or certain rules prescribed in that retreat, and whether you can, during the time of the retreat, not to recite your daily commitment. Otherwise, without getting a permission from the person that gave you the empowerment, you still have the mantra commitment that entails the daily recitation of the mantra.
他这个问题呢，是在问，就是说呢，因为他呢在多年来在不同的上师座下呢接了不少的这个法灌顶，然后有每天要念诵的这个誓言。那例如他有时候如果去参加，例如说这个100万遍的这个阿弥陀佛的这种闭关的话，那为了遵守这个闭关的规定呢，就是说在闭关期间不可以修别的法，只能就是参加他们的念他们的这个阿弥陀佛，这个是闭关的规定。那他可不可以在去参加闭关之前呢，先把他的誓言呢先念起来，再去参加闭关？那仁波切的回答就是说，一般来说哈，当你呢受过灌顶之后，要每天持咒的这种誓言是要每天都念，都不可以间断的哈，所以不可能就是说你先把未来几天的那个誓言先把它念完，再去闭关这样哈，这是不可能的。然后因为所谓的誓言就是要每天念，不可以间断哈，那所以呢仁波切呢就是建议说，你可以做的做法就是说，看你当时呢这个法呢是向哪位师长接的，你先去跟那位师长报告说，因为呢我要去参加某一个闭关哈，然后为了要遵守那个闭关的规定呢，我可不可以在那个闭关期间呢，我就是暂时没有念这些誓言这样子哈，所以除非你有先得到你当时传法的师长的这个许可哈，那不然的话呢，你就如果说在就不可以在闭关期间呢有间断，如果你没有得到许可的话呢哈，你还是每天都必须要遵守这个誓言。
这是才有事。